and welcome to the Gardner Innovation Search Partners podcast. On this show, we sit down with the brilliant minds guiding the amazing work being performed at universities across the globe. I'm your host, Quentin Thomas, and today I'm excited to be here with Paul Corson, Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer at the University of Texas, Arlington. Paul's career spans across the public and private sectors, NGOs, and higher education in the United States, Europe, Latin America, Middle East, and Asia. And I'm excited to be talking with him today about how U.S. universities can transform their business model to succeed in this rapidly shifting global landscape. And yeah, things are really rapidly shifting lately, it seems like. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Quinn.
Yeah, just to hop into it, you have a very diverse background. I'm from corporate, government, academia. How did you get to where you are now?
Very haphazardly. I could say I'm probably not unlike a lot of high school graduates who went to college because that's what people did and that's what you had to do to get a job. And went to college, changed my major from physics to Russian studies, and sort of then wasn't even sure what I'd do coming out of undergraduate. So I went and got a graduate degree in Russian studies, still wasn't sure what I was going to do. But I knew I wanted to be overseas, so I took the first job that would send me to a Russian-speaking country. It just happened to be Armenia and Georgia. Went to two countries in the mid-'90s, just as things were really changing dynamically. And that set in process a career that 30 years on looks like it could have been planned, but there was no planning. Very much just took the job everyone wanted in the place no one wanted to be, or went to the place everyone wanted to be and took a job that no one else wanted. In retrospect, what it's come to look like is I've had a very deliberate career in trying to figure out how to build regional economies, often through tech-based entrepreneurship. But that was not by design.
So throughout your journey, because you've been to many different places and different roles, what have you learned about regional economic development?
People like to say that sort of phrase, if you've seen one, you've seen one. And I think when it comes to regional economic development, that doesn't necessarily apply. We also have in the United States where everything has to be something .0 version of Silicon Valley or Boston. And there are very distinctive characteristics, personality traits of regions all over the country and all over the world. There's no denying that. But I also see very distinct similarities in regions. People are people wherever we go. And the economy is the economy wherever we go. I forget who it was that said capitalism is the worst economy except for all the other types. And we in the United States very much have this idea that we need to continue to grow and grow through consumerism. But I distill it down to regions really need to understand what they want to be. Do they want to be high job growth, high wage, high value creation regions? Often that comes with traffic. Often that comes with urbanization. Often that comes with challenges that blur what it means to have been that region historically. And so whenever I get engaged, the first question I always tend to ask is, what does this region want to be that's different from what this region wants to be now? Right. And then distilling down from there are very distinct characteristics and steps that a region can take to grow.
On another podcast that we produced, we had Mayor Andre Dickens as the guest. He was saying, just in kind of dealing with people, he's like, people are always peopling, So,
that's right.
Yeah. So what's been your favorite place to work in, or your favorite region to be in?
I typically say all the time, I don't have favorites. I have my favorite thing is to experience something. And so as long as I am constantly stimulated, bombarded by new situations, that's when it's a favorite. When that ends, then I get a little bit bored and I want to move on to the next. So I can honestly say my favorite job I ever had was working the night shift making donuts. And I learned a lot about people, and I learned a lot about the pace of a region by what happens after everybody goes to bed. One of the favorite cities that I've ever been to is Istanbul. And it was just that constant bombardment of new sensory stimulations. And the other thing I really like is a challenge. So I'm much more comfortable going into a region that is on the cusp or verge of something, a region that's at an inflection point, a region that says we want to grow and might not know what that means. I love that situation. I love trying to figure out how to put all the puzzle pieces together, as opposed to going into a region that's mature, stable, and is sort of growth based on what we have versus growth based on what we aspire to be.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. And also, yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that you worked a night shift making donuts before. So that's also really neat. Or did you get tired of eating donuts at some point, or do you still like them?
I love donuts. I limited myself to one when I showed up and one when I left.
Oh, nice. All right. Smart move. Smart move. So the places you've been, the things you've been involved in, and all that you've learned, like how have what you've learned along your journey related to your thoughts about tech transfer? And actually, even before you answer that, do you even call it technology transfer?
So I don't. I think that we can only be where we are having come from where we've been. And so I have the utmost respect for the people who pioneered the industry, the job of tech transfer. We can't create new unless we have a foundation upon which to build. And so that idea of how do we, from 1980 when Bayh-Dole was passed, how do we take all of that incredible science? How do we take that wonderful technology and how do we use it to create new products and services, new industries? How do we use it to innovate? That we couldn't be where we are now without having the 40 years of history of Bayh-Dole, 45 years, and sort of the 50 years of tech transfer. I do think, though, that tech transfer typically focuses on, we have an inventor who invents, often without a lot of market experience or market knowledge. They're pursuing science the way universities have pursued science and education for the benefit of humanity. And then that gets handed off to a tech transfer office. And that tech transfer office has to decide, usually with a limited budget, some exceptions, bigger offices, bigger budgets, but without too many exceptions, how do I try and protect this from the standpoint of a patent with a limited budget and limited knowledge? And so we get limited protection, and then we say, who wants to license my IP? That, to me, is the wrong approach. One of my good friends always says, Paul, you need to eat some of your own dog food. And that own dog food is teaching entrepreneurs, don't create your company, don't invest in creating a product until you know there's a customer for it. So in the university sense, we're creating a product, IP, without actually knowing who's our customer and what our customer actually wants. And if we flip that on its head and take the advice that we give to those entrepreneurs, then we can go out to the investors, we can go out to the entrepreneurs, we can go out to industry. Generally speaking, they're very willing to tell us what they're interested in, what they're investing in, what they see as the future. And if we bring that knowledge back, I've found that faculty members are often very willing to pursue research that has more of a commercial application if they know what the application is. To just say, that's not good enough, obviously, I can understand why faculty would get upset or frustrated or annoyed or say, well, that's what my grant's for. But if we work with faculty and say, here's where the market is, here's an idea for a solution to a problem that already exists. If we know that problem and they can figure out that solution, they still get the joy of inventing. They still get the joy of doing something new. They still get the joy of maybe figuring out something no one else has ever figured out, but they're doing it in a way that I can then help bring their creative genius to reality by getting it into a company, a product, or a service. So we talk about that as the business of innovation management, as opposed to the act of transferring technology.
Most companies, they'll look at what's the problem out there that needs to be solved, like what's the market saying, and then they'll design, develop around that, whatever their solution is. But we've been doing this way of technology transfer for decades now. Before why it's important, why do you think that we've been doing it this way and we haven't already made this shift that you're talking about?
Again, there are good reasons for why things have progressed the way they have. One of those things is, what is the main purpose of a university? Is the purpose of a university to create knowledge? Is it to educate the workforce of tomorrow? Is it to build the economies of tomorrow? Is it to pursue research? So one is, the purpose of a university has evolved over time, especially in the United States, as the United States has evolved. And as time passes, we evolve more rapidly. And so it's hard to take an institution that's been around for thousands of years, maybe not thousands, maybe 1,000 years, to take that institution and ask it to turn on a dime. Universities aren't known as hotbeds of innovation and entrepreneurship, and that's a good thing. And so we have that idea of academic freedom. We have that idea of knowledge creation for the purpose of creating knowledge. And when someone comes in and says, yeah, that's all good, but now you have to do something else, and that something else you have to do is business, I can understand why people think that impinges on academic freedom. I think I can understand why that might impinge on the purpose, the role, the value within a university. I like to talk to faculty from the standpoint of what motivates them. There are some who will always say, I'm just motivated by the science. But there are a lot of other folks who say, I'm motivated by seeing what I've dedicated my life to benefiting someone else other than simply them reading it in a book or in a paper. I want to see my life's pursuit benefit society in a different way. That's how we talk about what my center's mission is, to maximize the societal benefit of research conducted at a university. And so having those conversations, understanding what motivates faculty. Is it just you want to explore? Is it just you want to think? Or is it that you want to see people's lives improved because of what you were able to create? More and more it's that. And so more and more we're having to shift from just that idea of, I have a patent, let me see if anybody wants it, to, I want to benefit society, let me figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Man, what you said about understanding what motivates them, I feel like that's applicable not just in what we're talking about right now, but in any form of leadership role. You know, you're talking about something that's very important in understanding what motivates, because it's not bad if it's just purely they're motivated by the science. It's not bad if it's that they want to impact society.
Fantastic.
It's great, you know? So just coming to that question that you were getting to of why it's important. I want to ask, like, why is this shift important? And also kind of tagging on to that, like, whom might this be applicable to as well?
this circles back on where we started, which is how every region is different and what motivates the region to grow and the role of the university in that region. And then how do we create a sustainable or a resilient, maybe the right word is a resilient business model for a university, given its role in a region. And so doubling back for just a second, even though every region is different, I think there are 4 underlying types of capital that are vital to the growth, the development, the expansion, wealth creation for a community, for a region. And you'll notice I don't talk about ecosystems. I think the word ecosystem has been bastardized in so many different ways, and now it means nothing because it means everything to everyone. At the heart of it, we have a community, and that community has to rally around a vision for the growth, the development, the changes in that region. That's where the idiosyncratic character becomes so important. But we have these 4 types of capital. There's human capital. People have to do the jobs. There's intellectual capital. We have to innovate based on something. There's physical capital. We need the roads, bridges, schools, but we also need the wet labs and the office space and the incubators and all of that. And then there's financial capital. We need the money to invest. And so when we think of a region in terms of those 4 types of capital, the university gets asked to do all of that for all things. We're often the biggest employer. We're often the biggest producer of workforce. We're often the creator of intellectual capital, but not just the intellectual capital, but then the startups. But the startups are too risky, and so we have to invest in the startups. We have to build buildings. We have to be all 4 of those types of capital in a region, and we have to do it in every idiosyncratic region. That's just too much. And I think that's led to a situation where universities have had to go down so many rabbit holes that resiliency in its business model becomes really challenging to pull off. And so, especially in this era right now, where government funding, the paradigm for government funding has changed very rapidly, more rapidly than most universities can adjust to. Corporations are faced with challenges, especially in a changing environment. What is that role of a university? Does it have to plug every hole? And if it does have to plug every hole, how can it do that? It can't. The numbers don't work out from a dollars and cents standpoint. And so stepping back and thinking about the university acting more as a catalyst. There are regional champions who can rally behind and push a vision for regional economic development, but the university may not be the best organization to be at the forefront of that. And to be honest, elected officials may not be the best people to be at the forefront of that. It's so much more complicated. And so if the universities can step back and say, we're really good in this region at this institution of doing this. Maybe it's workforce and science. Maybe it's science and startups. Maybe it's providing the physical infrastructure, and we have an alumni base that can provide the capital. But figuring out what the university can excel at in terms of those 4 types of capital, finding champions that can garner the interest, support, and time and participation of all those others in the region, and then building out that innovation agenda, which then a policy platform can come in behind and support. I think the role of the university maybe in some areas can advance and expand, and maybe in some other areas might retract a little bit. But that doesn't mean in retracting that it's a zero-sum game. It means that it just provides a vacancy for someone else to fill.
Some of the things I've seen just in my career, it seems like the role of the university has continued to expand and expand and expand. I mean, one of the things, for example, like the number of innovation hubs and things like that that have come up. And like you're saying, it's like universities are sort of expected to fill in these gaps. And you know, one of the things you're talking about, I imagine that if particularly for regions where there are multiple universities, what you're talking about would be a pretty good model for even universities to be able to collaborate together, where they have strengths and others may have weaknesses, and then kind of coming together and complementing each other more, as opposed to trying, you know, competing for whatever resources in these different areas, you know?
It really is fascinating. We just spent a couple of days at UT Arlington talking about what it means to be an R1 university, what it means to be a comprehensive research university, what it means to try and create new majors to meet the demands of society and the rapidly evolving demands of society, and what that means for older majors. You know, I was asked by our Department of Linguistics to give a talk on Career Day because they said, we've got a lot of students who are pursuing degrees that have a linguistic component, but their parents don't necessarily see the value in them. And so how do we give the students talking points to help their parents see that there's value in this? And for me, my degree is not necessarily linguistics, it's more international relations, but the Russian language was a huge component, about a quarter of my classes. And by learning the construct of Russian, it helped me understand some of the ways that folks who speak Russian think. Our language, whether our society dictates the way of the construct of our language or vice versa, if we understand the construct of languages, we understand so much about societies. Yeah. And so I will take a linguistics major who shows an ability to learn science, just as I'll take a scientist who shows the ability to think creatively and in a way where they can learn language. We can't divorce them from each other. But then how does the university do all of this? If there are multiple universities in a region and we're all fighting to be R1 and we're all fighting to be, you know, the biggest R1 and we're all fighting to be the most comprehensive and we're all fighting to have the best computer science department and we're all fighting for innocent, then we're just fighting. And that's self-defeating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been great. As we wrap up, one last question. What advice would you give to, let's say, maybe a vice president of research or researchers or even others in these ecosystems on how to move forward right now? Like what that next step looks like?
If we could all develop one skill, and I'm going way out on a limb here, this is beyond anything that I've ever studied. The concept of empathy, the concept of understanding, putting ourselves in someone else's position and understanding the external forces and the internal motivations that drive people. If we can do that, not just as individuals, as researchers, as administrators in universities, right? If we can do that as human beings, I think we can step back from a lot of this, whether we call it conflict or we call it brinkmanship, we call it whatever. We need each other to advance, to thrive. And so as a VP for research at a research university, it's not just about STEM. It's not just about the arts. It's not just about the education. It's not just about the commercialization. It's not just about the economic development. It's just not workforce. Okay? It's about all of that. When we think of that, we get to the genuine definition of an ecosystem, which is how animate beings engage with the inanimate environment around them.
Yeah.
If we call our regional development sort of that inanimate object, and we are all the animated beings, if we understand each other better, we can then capitalize on the collaborations better.
I love it. Paul, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thanks for coming on to the Gardner Innovation Search Partners podcast. This is great.
We'd love to see you in Arlington, that's for sure.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, you can count on it.
Awesome. Thanks, Quentin.
To everyone tuning in right now, thanks for tuning into the Gardner Innovation Search Partners podcast. To learn more about Gardner Innovation Search Partners, visit gardnerisp.com.